best way and the easiest way to increase creativity, innovation, decrease self-doubt, increase confidence in ways that almost nothing else can. Also know that more people need this, and that's kind of where my mission has begun.
Welcome, everyone. Get ready for a really fun time. We have with us Dr. Kristin Yates. She's a board certified OBGYN author. She's a coach, and she is going to teach us about the importance of play. And one more thing is that she is the host of Imposter to Unstoppable. So make sure to find her there. But today, we'll welcome her here to this channel. So thank you so much, Kristin, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
And for people who haven't met you yet, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I graduated from residency in 2016, and then I thought I got the job of my dreams, and everything was all fine and great for about a month until I realized that I had a ton of dread when it came to work, and I was full of self-doubt. And I eventually realized that I had something called imposter syndrome, and it was totally ruining everything. I couldn't enjoy my job. I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought I didn't belong. And through a series of random events, I found out about coaching, where I learned about how the thoughts I have being optional. And then I just basically, over several months, changed a lot of the thoughts I had about my own abilities and second guess the self-doubt, basically. And I was able to totally transform my ability to love my job and got to a place where I didn't have doubt anymore, and I was confident in what I did and my abilities. And then I just had this overwhelming desire to share what I knew with other doctors. And then that was probably 3.5 years ago now. And since then, things have just drastically changed over and over again, where now I am on the brink of a transition where I'm changing my job, leaving the state I live in and moving to a state where I don't know anyone, starting a totally different job, and also having this entrepreneurial side where I have been a life coach now for about a year and a half, and I have a podcast, and I go around the country talking to adults about play.
And I can't wait to hear more about play. And I wanted to pause for anyone that, with the journey and everything that you've learned about imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and all the tidbits that you have. I absolutely love your podcast. So again, I want after you hear us on this channel, make sure that you stop on over to Imposter to Unstoppable. Every single tidbit that you give, I really value. But we're going to take a pivot because there's a really exciting thing that we want to talk about, which I think is under discussed, and it is the topic of play. Can you share more with us?
Yeah, so I realized maybe about 2 years ago. So I was in a place where I was feeling really good about my job. I liked what I was doing, but I just didn't feel like I was having enough fun. And my husband, in a very loving way, said, "You're just not as fun as you used to be." And I was like, okay, well, that's true, definitely. And at first I kind of brushed it off, and I was like, well, whatever. I'm a doctor and a mom, and I don't have time for fun. But then I was like, you know what? No, like that was actually a really big part of my life, to the point where, like, in high school, that was just, I would have just pretend weddings in hallways just for the fun of it. And people would call me their ball of fun. And I just was like, that really was a huge part of my life that is dead. So I put out a message on Facebook, actually, like asking, like, how do adults play? Like, what do you do for play? And I got a range of ideas. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try things. And then I started just kind of loosening up a little bit and taking myself less seriously with little things like dance parties in the kitchen or on my way to work, or running around like a crazy person with my kids, or just random stuff, painting or coloring. And then that kind of evolved into wanting to create retreats, adventure retreats for physicians. And at the time I was in a program, I got to talk to Jill Bolte Taylor, who is like the epitome of right brain fun and is so fantastic. And I talked to her about this idea about making adventure retreats, and she was like, do that, but just make sure it's fun. Like, just have fun. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I created some retreats for physicians where we went ziplining and painted, and we just did fun things, and then also did some coaching. And that's when I really started to like blossom into this fun person again. And I realized how much it was helping me in my job even more, like really staying present in the moment of my job and and liking it, um, and liking myself too. And then I just really did a deep dive into all the scientific benefits of play and what's out there, which is a ton of information about play and how important it is. And I can definitely go into that if you want. But essentially, once I learned all that, I was like, okay, like that really is appealing to my left brain side. And I also know that more people need this. And that's kind of where my mission has begun.
And given the people that I know have been on my channel, the audience of my channel, and me, I'd love to hear the scientific background on the neuroscience of play.
Yeah. So, what we know about play is that it's the best way and the easiest way to increase creativity, innovation, decrease self doubt, increase confidence in ways that almost nothing else can. And a lot of adults think of play as this thing that we don't really need, and it's no one really has time for that because it makes us less productive. It's a waste of time. But play is actually a biological need. It's a requirement, the same as sleep is, the same as food is. And what that means is that if we don't get enough of play, then we actually end up depressed
Mhm.
or languishing or worse, burnt out, overwhelmed, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of us feel like I just need to be more productive or change my circumstance in order to feel better and not be depressed, when for the most part it's just an imbalance of a homeostatic process that is the difference between work and play, or depression and play, which is really what it is. I read a book called Play, actually, and the researcher talked about how, or the quote that I love so much was that the opposite of play is not work, it's depression, which
Mhm.
is very true. So we think that if we're not working, then, or if we're not playing, then if we're playing, we're not working. When in reality, what we know about from science now is that the more we spend time playing, the better and more efficient we get at our work.
Mhm.
And the other part of this is the work that Jill Bolte Taylor has done when we talk about the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So the left hemisphere is really heavy in society and for doctors too, and anyone who has a professional career. It's the logical thinking side of the brain. It's the memorization, all the drugs, all the procedures, all of that kind of thing. That's what the left brain is for. And the the other part of that is that that's where the self-doubt lives. That's where the comparison lives. It's where all the thoughts of I'm not enough live. They reside on the left hemisphere of the brain. So while we're all out here as physicians or people in society we use our left brain to dictate our lives, when in reality that's not actually how we were created. We were actually created to have the right brain, our right hemisphere of our brain, lead us, and we're supposed to use the left brain as a tool.
Mhm.
So there's a book called The Master and His Emissary or something like that, but essentially it talks about how we're supposed to function as human beings and how our brain is supposed to work is that we use our right brain as the guide, which is the present moment, the creativity, the play, the love. And then we use our left brain as a tool for things like what medicine to prescribe, how to do a surgery, that kind of thing. But now in our society, and especially for physicians, it's totally backwards,
Mhm.
and even worse, to the point where our training almost dictates that you have to forget that side of you, the creative side, the fun side, in order to survive in medicine and make it far, right? You're like, no one has time for a hobby when you're a medical student or resident. So it's gotten so out of balance that we are so led by our left brain that many of us have forgotten how to even access the right side of our brain. So back to the science, I think of play as, um, a workout for your right hemisphere of your brain. Because what happens is when you do something that's playful, which means that has no purpose, it brings you joy. When you do that, you are using the neurons in the right side of your brain. And the more that you do that, the better you become at using the right hemisphere of your brain in everyday life. So on a practical level, what that looks like is I'm going to spend an hour ziplining on the weekend and really and feel what that feels like in my brain and my body. And then when I go to work on Monday, when I'm in the office and I have 15 tasks to do and I'm 30 minutes behind, because I've exercised the right hemisphere of my brain, instead of allowing the left brain to go through the to-do list and worry about running behind and ruminating about mistakes, I'm really good at being led by my right hemisphere, which means I'm present with my patient. I'm listening to her. I'm feeling what she's telling me. I'm in the moment with love and compassion. And at the end of the day, that makes me a better doctor and makes me a more fulfilled doctor. So that's the power of leveraging the science of play to improve the rest of your life.
So much of this is like mind blow. So when I tried to stepwise back fashion, like develop depression as an adult, one of the things I was like, oh, because as an adult, we have to be very intentional about getting these extracurricular activities that we already had in our life as kids. And like, that's a difference that we really don't have, and giving ourselves permission. And I think why I love that you share the science is I think it will give people permission to say, well, I mean, Dr. Yates said I needed to do this because there's scientific benefits, right? It allows us to give us that permission. And for me in med school, where I really realized the difference of the lack of play and how it was negatively impacting me, was as I liked to really just be creative and express myself in drama, right? And just like, just be goofy. Actually, my nickname was Silly Jilly. And when I was losing the identity of my Air Force oral surgery, I think one of the things I hadn't yet appreciated, which I appreciated this year, was like, oh, I had lost my core self, which was really a sensitive, goofy person that genuinely liked to connect with people. And there was evidence of the loss of my creativity when I tried to go back to improv acting classes or even acting classes with a script. And I was like, I'm no longer able to do this. I literally felt like I was incompetent as an intern, and then I was incompetent as then a medical student, and then I was incompetent in what I used to be competent in. And it was this mind drama, and not realizing that if you focus so much on that left brain cultivation of its logical skills, right, and had neglected that right side of my brain, I didn't have the tools you're just giving me to understand and give myself compassion, that I had neglected that side of my brain for so long. Of course, I was feeling like a fish out of water.
Yeah, exactly. And you had to do that, right? I mean, that's how you had to survive. So I think that so many people can relate to that. I know I can. And I don't even think you lost it. I think it's still there. It's still a part of you. It's just that it's like lifting weights, like I have no upper body strength whatsoever. So I'm going to lift like a 3-pound weight the first time I go to the gym. Right. And then over time, I'm going to be able to maybe get to 10 or 15, someday 25, probably not. But it's the same kind of idea, right? Like our neurons, they're just, they get stronger with use. So those synapses, those neurons are still there. It's just that they're a little bit dusty. You just got to kind of like blow the dust off a little bit and do some exercises. And then all of a sudden it'll be like bringing light back to that part of your brain where you'll be able to access it much more easily.
This is bringing up, so I was off Instagram for a long time until the ACE conference held by Dina, Dawn, and Nora. And so when I got on Instagram, I was off of it because, with a history of an eating disorder, you just didn't want any risk. And we're often told that it's high risk for triggering things, right? But then I learned that you could put photos to music. And then I was really stressed out one day and I saw this person doing a funny dance. So I did it. And I had like no expectation. And then I was at a coaching, so I'm a coach within my institution. And I was discussing my other tools learned from a different coaching program in this environment. And one of the people there was physician, and he said, and you should check out her Instagram. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my Instagram is the least professional thing about me. But yet, and I say this because I feel there was a leader there who, I don't know her role. I know it's high. And I know she's got a lot of pressure to be perfect, but she thanked me for being human. And, but I say this because I think a lot of times for me, it's just true, is I already look young. If I do something that's not professional, am I risking blank? And what I realize now is I want to be at a place that accepts my whole self and that values the creativity or the eccentric nature or the goofiness, as long as at the core essence of our job, like I'm professional there, and you can really light up and make a better environment to work in, which can be more effective. So I think it's really also pushing against that, oh, if I'm playing, that's not professional, because I think that will come up, right?
Yeah, it comes up all the time. And it came up for me like, oh, what if a patient sees me like running around like a lunatic with a kite at a beach? Like, what are they going to think? Right. And then I was like, who, number one, who cares? Which is, you just get to that place, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
But number two, the question really became like, who decides what's professional anyway? And I kind of got to the point where professional for me means being authentically me.
Mhm.
And sometimes that means that I'm going to say, that really sucks to someone in a talk, right? Or I'm going to say like, you really had a shitty day to a patient, like or who knows what it's going to look like. Or maybe it looks like I'm going to dye my hair purple or do funny things, and who cares if patients see me. But I think that professionalism, I think historically what it actually has meant is you need to fit a mold, and that needs to take over your identity, and you need to forget about who you are, and you need to fit this definition of professional, whatever the hell that is, right? Which is probably created by the patriarchy.
Yeah, I
You want
mean,
to go there.
honestly, it's true. Anything, the things that I talk about now, it always makes me angry. So I'm like, this was designed to oppress, especially women, and then I fight out against more. And I think what you hit there is so important. Is if you're doing something that's authentic to you, I think that external feedback matters less. Like we can take it
Mm-hmm.
with, we can bring it in and evaluate it with our own eye. But what I realized is like, if I'm doing something authentic to me, then the feedback doesn't hurt as much as I can take it to learn from. If I'm doing something for an external expectation, it feels so outside, like, so I feel like right now, even thinking about it, sick to my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people ask, like, how can you do that weird thing on Instagram, or like say, or you get comments, right? You get, I don't know, social media. I've gotten some interesting comments, to say the least. And to step back and think about where comments come from other people in
Mm-hmm.
general is a reflection of their own internal biases. And
Mm-hmm.
if we're self-conscious, then it can bring up that self-conscious nature. So if someone says to me, oh, you're kind of unprofessional there. Well, if I'm already nervous that I'm being unprofessional, I might be like, oh, they're right. But if I'm like, well, I was being my true authentic self, like, yeah,
Yeah.
then it's different,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And I think that that's another part of play that's so important when it comes to confidence is um, certainly self-coaching and questioning the thoughts I had were really helpful when it came to my confidence, but so is play. And it's because when you're truly playing, you the perspective you can get from that part of your brain, from this right hemisphere, is that all of the thought, like their perspective is different. It's like you can see the bullshit in the thoughts, and you just, when you're in the thick of it, when you're in it, it feels so true. It feels so true and so heavy and debilitating. And it seems so simple, but all it really takes is racing a go-kart around a few times the track to realize that, oh my gosh, why was I thinking that was such a big deal that I got that email? Like, who cares? And you might be doubting that, but I dare you to try it and then come back and tell me it didn't work. And that's really the only way you're going to know. And what's the harm? Like, you spent 30 minutes racing a go-kart around, but the benefit is that truly, when you can get that bird's eye view of your own left brain tricks, it just doesn't feel as heavy anymore. And when you can go into your job not feeling heavy and just feeling grateful and authentically you, that's the best version that you're putting out there, hands down. And it doesn't matter if someone else thinks you're professional or not, because they're going to have a judgment of you anyway.
Yeah.
And the more important thing is that you're doing the best job that you can do from the most authentic part of you.
This showed up a lot. This resonates deeply because I realized I had a lot going on in 2021, and I had resentment, and I was showing up in a way that felt bad. I'm like, something about me I don't really like. And I realized through what you're describing as play and leaning into what I don't like about how I'm showing up. I'm like, I was ruminating over things that I needed to let go of. And I needed to learn how to hold space in a compassionate way. And I think when you're talking about getting a email and then going on a go-kart, I think it's really important because even if we think about DBT and therapy modeling, it's if you do really get something that's emotionally triggering, before you react to that, pause, do whatever that can help you release that energy. And you may see it from a different perspective, but it really structures that pause. And that was something I had learned. My first experience as an attending, I think the thing I wished I would have known earlier was really cultivated a deeper emotional intelligence. And because I'm a very sensitive, emotional person, but if you can harness your emotions and lean into them and express them and get them out. And I think that's what play does, or even just that play when we talked about the Instagram dancing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just like when I think about what medicine does, it's very limiting. I felt, we talked on your podcast, we'll send them back, but about suicidal ideation, right? I felt very trapped, very limiting. So when I think of your play model, I think, gosh, that would be so great when we're so trapped, we're so restricted, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have ideas, because it gives me this impression of expansile. The
Yeah.
You're seeing more of the world. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
truly present during that play, this can be life-saving.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that word, that because that really truly what it feels. It feels expansive to play and to connect with joy again, because joy is a very big emotion. True joy is a huge, expansive, light emotion. And when you can connect with that on a regular basis, then it doesn't mean that you never have those heavy thoughts again, but it does mean that when you do have them, you also have a memory of something bigger than that. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to get you out of it, or to at least get you to the place where you know that there's somewhere else you can go, that you belong.
Mm.
And I know for me, I've had a lot of passive thoughts of, it would be fine if I just got into an accident
Yeah.
today, those kinds of things. And when you're in that moment, it feels tight. You're right. Like you're like, I'm in this place and I'm so trapped. And I think the one thing that I've always been able to lean into again is that memory of how it feels to play, because that feels more real,
Yeah.
because it's my entire body that's there, and not just loops in my brain that are I'm just lost in that place.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, this would be a great opportunity to share how, because I think coaching is really helped, because as a person who can have blind spots, right? We are ruminating, these thoughts are so real, just as we learned in one of your episodes about imposter syndrome. Like, I'm very comfortable in this feeling of self-doubt. I have learned it quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think coaching, it helps you to have somebody as a guide to help navigate with you and help kind of be that mirror for your blind spots and take you to that next level. Would you mind sharing how you help to coach people when it comes to play?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it starts with something like doubt. That's a lot of how people find me typically, is overwhelmed doubt and that kind of thing. And the first part of it is the thoughts, like what thoughts are there, the recognition that they're not true. And then it becomes, what can you cultivate in your life that's going to allow you to get out of that habit, right? So much of it is, can you find 5 minutes in your day to just do something fun or relax? I lean a lot on like dance parties in your car on your commute, because it doesn't take any more time.
Yeah.
So I think what it has been for me historically is trying to get people to add in play nuggets, if you will, into their day, where they can start to remember what that right hemisphere does. And now, as I pivot to getting play to more people in a bigger scale, it's going to be taking away all the arguments about, I don't have time to plan it, I don't know what to do, because there's a lot of reasons not to play. I don't know what to do for play, I don't have the time to play, I don't want to do it wrong, I don't want to be unprofessional, all these things, right? So now I basically said, okay, well, I think all those excuses are valid, but also not useful.
Yeah.
So I'll take away all of that stuff and just give you play, because I think that's what a lot of adults need, is just, I know I need the play, or I know I want some adventure in my life. I just don't have the wherewithal. I'm so burnt out or overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. But if I can get you there and get you started, I think that's the way to do it.
And this even comes to mind about, I think, having like a very intentional discussion with you to help people to navigate. We're talking about measurements of like productivity. If I looked at my day and be like, yeah, well, I'm very busy with all these different things, but when it comes to, I just started grad school classes and I was immediately able to see, well, here are the boundaries I need to create in order to focus on this. So I think as people value and they see the value of play, then that's the same thing. It's like, oh, well, now I can see more clearly the things I do need to drop in order to spend more time on prioritizing play. And as you mentioned, it can make you more effective, more productive, but also illuminate what matters in life.
Yeah, exactly. And really, it's not a time issue. I mean, we say that like, I don't have enough time, but the real issue is exactly what you just said. It's the prioritizing of our attention is not aligned with our priorities and our core values. And we all fall victim to that because we're just so used to just keeping our head down and doing the daily grind. But it doesn't take a lot of time to look at that and realize, oh yeah, I'm doing all of these things that I don't even really care about. I just haven't had time to think about it. So almost everyone, if not everybody, can find an hour of time in their week to focus attention on a priority, which is their mental health and their physical health and their future.
And I would always ask, especially this audience, if they know how I got here, to always evaluate, are my priorities in alignment with my core values? Always check in with yourself. Are they in alignment? Because the feeling of regret, I mean, it took me 5 years to even show my face after I left surgery. And I like did things like I just was in burnout and going through the motions, but that was 5 years. And I don't feel, I think 5 years, I don't regret it. It was a great learning opportunity to then share the story to help other people not follow the same path and to get relief earlier, to take those chances on a happier life with reduced suffering earlier. And is there anything else? I know we could talk for a long time. There's so many different things, but of course I want to be mindful of your time. But is there anything that you would like to leave with the audience today?
I think what I want to leave with the audience is that it's really easy to add in shoulds. Oh, I should play now. You're saying that I should play and I should play. So
Time to
what
play.
what I want to leave you with instead is, what can you, instead of trying to navigate your day, just ask yourself, what's the easiest way I can play this week? And I love that question, because then your brain gets to go to work with something that's actually simple. And a couple of good ideas would be to the dance party, if you're into music, dance party on your way to work or in your kitchen.
I never know how to do YouTube music when it's
I know.
So we just dance here, and then I always put music in later.
There you go.
Yeah,
Just add music.
Literally be dancing while listening.
Yeah, riding a bike is a ton of fun if you're a bike rider. That would be another thing, like, okay, I'm going to do a 5-minute bike ride, or something like that. Or coloring is another really good one. Just take out crayons or some gel pens or something and color. Those are just some quick ideas just to start getting using the little mini weights to add some fun into your life, and then just kind of explore like what did I used to do for fun. Kind of think back to your childhood and remember like, oh, I really used to like playing with Legos or painting or something like that. Go back to your roots and then add that in if that's what resonates with you, but make it easy.
And there's a lot of nostalgia that can come in with that too.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
some people might just be listening, so I want to make sure that they hear what's the best way to find you.
I am most active on Instagram at Kristin Yates DO. That's probably the best way to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Yates, for being here and sharing the act of play and all your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to the audience. Of course, we want to hear from you and we want to see how you incorporate play into your life. And if you need support doing that, please reach out to Dr. Yates. And until next time.
Bye.